There you are. You're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Terrific. And everybody else?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Let's convene the meeting of February 25th, 2026. Oh, go ahead. Of the Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices. The first item is ratification of the minutes of the January 28th and February 10th, 2026 meetings. Do I have a motion? Hearing none, I'll make one. I move that we ratify the minutes of January 28th and February 10th.
Second.
Is there discussion?
No.
Hearing none, we'll move to a vote and we'll do roll call votes because people are remote today. So Commissioner Hastings?
Yes.
Commissioner Marbury?
Yes.
Commissioner Leclerc? Oh, Commissioner Leclerc, you look like you've frozen up. No? Commissioner Leclerc, are you still with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay.
How do you vote on the ratification of the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll vote yes as well. Moving on to agenda item 2, this is a request for investigation of the Maine Democratic Party. We've had briefing from Mr. Bolton and Mr. Titcomb in the meantime. So Mr. Wayne, would you fill us back in?
Sure. So this is a continuation of a matter that you heard at your last meeting. Mr. Alex Titcomb filed a complaint against the Maine Democratic Party, asserting that because it raised and spent more than $5,000 to influence question 1 on the ballot last November, it should have registered with our office as a ballot question committee and filed reports with us. And then the party responded, we're directed in statute to disclose all of our expenditures against a ballot question in our regular party reports that we file as party committee. So we were not under an obligation to form a separate committee to duplicate that reporting. At the last meeting, the commission asked your counsel, Assistant Attorney General Jonathan Bolton, to write a legal memo about how the election law, whether the election law requires party committees to disclose as ballot question committees, which was in your packet. He's here today to answer any questions you have. And also at the last meeting, the commission asked staff to begin an investigation into the Maine Democratic Party's transactions related to question 1. So I sent the party questionnaire. I got detailed information in response. I would say the investigation is largely done, although I might have a couple of follow-up questions. The reason in the staff memo I didn't go into more detail about the investigation or get into violations was potential violations, because it just seemed premature for me to do that at a juncture where the commission might be instructing us on which laws applied. It just seemed sort of cart before the horse for me to start talking about potential violations. But let me just say, if the commission agrees with your counsel's recommended view, which is that the Maine Democratic Party should have reported its ballot question committee in its regular reports, I'm ready here today to talk about possible violations and how the commission might consider them going forward. So if you have any interest in that later on, we can do that.
I think we have interest now.
Now,
Yeah.
should I just go into it right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it seems to me, the Democratic Party is saying under section 1017A, that's the statute that controls how it should have reported its ballot question activity. The party only filed quarterly reports last year. And it's offered an explanation for why that happened. But on my reading of 1017-A, the party failed to file 4 reports. It should have filed, if 1017-A is the controlling statute, it because the party was spending money to influence question one, it should have filed campaign finance report 11 days before the election in 2025. And there were two 24-hour reports it should have filed, and also a 42-day post-election report. And the party, I'm not reading any indication that the party had bad intent or did, trying to conceal anything, but as you know, from all sorts of late filing situations, their candidates, their committees that just should have done more. They had good intentions, but they should have gone farther. They didn't understand what they had to do, or whatever. And so if you want to, one way to handle this, if you agree with Mr. Bolton's recommended view of the law, would be for staff to write a memo after this meeting, send it to the Maine Democratic Party, saying, here's the reports that we think weren't filed. And these are the preliminary penalties. It would be sort of a late filing situation that you're familiar with. These are the preliminary penalties, and you maybe make a recommendation on what an appropriate reduction would be, and then they would have ample time to respond. Yes or no, there was a violation, there wasn't a violation, or here's the reduction that would be appropriate. So that's just one avenue that you could go down
Sure,
if
we adopt Mr.
Yeah.
Bolton's proposal.
Yeah. That's
Okay, great.
That's my point of view on that.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Wayne?
No.
Okay,
No.
Mr. Bolton, would you like to discuss your analysis of the law?
Sure. I think as I kind of lay out in the statute or in the memo, the statutes are, I think, not as clearly written as they could be on this. I think, looking at the legislative history and honestly the lack of legislative history on this question, I think the conclusion I reached on this is that probably nobody's really thought about this. This is just a scenario that wasn't in anybody's mind when this legislation and the previous legislation before it was put into the statute. I think it's just a likely an fairly unusual situation where a party committee wants to influence a ballot question, and it's just not the sort of type of core hypothetical you have in mind with writing legislation. So I think this is probably not something that was intentionally addressed one way or the other by the legislature. So I think, given that, I think we have to look at sort of broader considerations of both the text of the statute is obviously very important, but also the structure of the statute and interpreting the statute in a way that makes it work as sort of a workable whole, as a complete framework. And ultimately, I think there are different ways you can look at it. I lay out 3 different interpretations. I feel pretty strongly interpretation 1, which is the one where they file parallel reports, is probably not the best way to look at the statute. The other approach would be the party has to report its expenditures on ballot questions directly up to the $5,000 threshold. And then they have to form a ballot question committee and report further expenditures as the ballot question committee, with the party reporting contributions to the ballot question committee. That's a more plausible, I think, alternate reading of the statute. But ultimately, I thought the best way to make sense of the statute as a whole, in my view, is that there should be only that the parties should report, given that there's language indicating that clearly parties need to be reporting something with regard to ballot questions because it says it in the statute in 1017A. And I think the best way to make sense of the full statutory scheme is that parties report under 1017A, ballot question committees report under 1052 or 1052A. Those are 2 separate reporting regimes, and the same entity shouldn't be subject to both. It should be one or the other. And so the textual issue with that, right, is that ballot question committee is defined very broadly in statute. It is defined to mean any person. And as I argue in the memo, if you look at the definitions section of chapter 13, it does say that these definitions apply unless the context otherwise indicates my argument would be that in this particular case where the legislature has clearly set forth an alternate reporting regime for party committees that includes their ballot question expenditures. In this particular context, you have to read the best reading of person is to read it to exclude this particular type of committee, which is separately regulated elsewhere in chapter 13. So that's my best reading of the statute. I think this is a fairly difficult question. I think the commission could take a different read, and it would be defensible.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Bolton?
I don't,
Commissioner Murphy?
yeah, I actually, I just want to make absolutely certain, in a complicated structure that I'm understanding and clear on what Mr. Bolton is interpreting. And so my question is, under 1017A, lacking a statement that says political parties have to create BQCs or report as a BQC would after expending $5,000. Lacking that, is the party structurally at fault under 1017A? And if I haven't asked that question well, I apologize.
Well, I think the party, my understanding is, did report under 1017A. There's an argument that I think that the level of detail in the disclosures was inadequate because you can't tell from the expenditure reports that the money was going towards the ballot question. So I think that that's something the commission could potentially look at, and then Jonathan's mentioned the potential that certain reports weren't filed that should have been under 1017A. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Well, I'm almost seeing this as two issues. One is sort of fundamental and structural, regarding PACs, BQCs, and parties. And the statutory language may be somewhat lacking, but I think they treat each of those three somewhat differently. They define them for a reason. They're not identical parties. So I'm reluctant to accept an argument that says this party in this case, or any party in another case, would have to either create a BQC at $5,000 or file like one, because that language is lacking, in my opinion. Now, as to whether or not the party disclosed everything it should have or satisfied reporting requirements, to me, that's an important but separate issue. And what I heard in Mr. Wayne's introductory statements was we may look at that as further investigative work.
Well, I think you're entirely right. I think there's the foundational question is deciding what the statute requires of them. And then the second question is deciding whether or not they met their requirement.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, it's certainly true that 1017A is completely silent on any possible requirement that a party might need to form a ballot question committee at some point. I don't know that that's dispositive evidence of statutory purpose and intent. Because I think you could read the ballot question committee definition as just being so expansive that it separately creates that requirement, even though it's not mentioned in 1017A. Certainly, it's not ideal drafting if the legislature wanted to include party committees in the BQC requirement. Saying nothing about that in the statute that applies to party committees is not sort of ideal drafting, but I don't know that you can draw anything conclusive from that.
Are there other
Thank
questions
you.
for Mr. Bolton or discussion? Yes, Commissioner Leclerc.
So, I mean, we have endeavored to introduce legislation. I'm not sure how that's going to correct what we all acknowledge is an ambiguity regarding the reporting requirements. So I guess my question, I'm a little unclear of at this point, is Mr. Wayne saying that strictly under the party reporting requirements that they were possible deficiencies, not accepting that they should have registered as a ballot question committee, but just a standalone as the party committee. Are you saying that there were discrepancies or omissions, deficiencies?
Possibly, I think that's what he's saying, yeah.
Well, I'd like to hear from him, please.
Yeah, 1017A requires that the party committee statute, or the party committee statute requires that they report the date, amount, and purpose of each expenditure. And I think, you know, it's Mr. Wayne's investigation so far has shown, and I think the party has agreed that they did not report the purpose of those expenditures well enough to let the public know that they were expended to oppose question 1.
Okay, my apologies. I think my feed froze there for a minute.
Oh,
My question was to Mr. Wayne regarding whether he is saying that there were deficiencies strictly under the party reporting rules.
I mean, this just amounts to my opinion as a staff member here, and which is that there are two types of if you assess, did the Maine Democratic Party comply with the party committee reporting statute, I'd say that there are two different types of deficiencies. The first is the party should have filed, that there were campaign finance, they should have filed more frequently. There were 4 reports, in my opinion, that the Maine Democratic Party should have filed, but didn't. And instead, based on how our e-filing system worked, the state party committee just filed 4 reports for the entire year. And I think there should have been some additional reports.
And
That's just my opinion as staff. And I was offering to, you know, sort of write that up in the future if you wanted to go in that direction.
okay, and so you're saying that that's strictly under their obligations as a party committee, not as entity that should have registered as a ballot question committee.
That's right. And then the other deficiency is the one that John Bolton mentioned, which is in the reports that were filed, those reports may have been incomplete because they did not adequately designate which expenditures were made to oppose question 1. You see the other transaction information, the name of the payee, the address, the amount, and a general purpose, but there was no specific mention that they were there, that the expenditures were made to oppose that ballot question. So that's sort of a matter of incomplete reporting, potentially, that could be viewed as another type of deficiency. And again, this is just my personal opinion, which, you know, I was offering to write up in the future if you want to go in this direction.
and let me ask, would our reporting system have allowed that?
We believe so, yeah. We think there could have been 3 different ways the party could have identified which expenditures opposed question 1.
Can I ask another question?
Of course.
So, this is an unusual situation, and I just want to clarify that this is strictly under 1017A, the requirements of the party committee that you're talking about.
That's correct.
And are there other questions for Mr. Bolton or Mr. Wayne?
Just, yeah, I'm sorry to be passive.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
The legislation that's being advanced addresses these issues specifically going forward?
Correct. The legislation that was proposed to you at the last meeting was intended to make sure that the party committee reports contain the right detail about what are the purposes of the expenditures. And then the legislation also exempted all party committees from the definition of what is a ballot question committee. So the law would be even more clear that these ballot question related transactions would be in the party committee reports, and the parties would not have to be filed separately as a ballot question committee. That was the intent of legislation, and it actually has moved through the BLA committee unanimously as part of a committee amendment.
Good.
And so you're proposing to write something up which addresses the deficiencies in this particular case. Would you also be addressing the changes that were deemed necessary by the proposed legislation?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to, as part of that, summarize the legislation. That would be no problem.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marble, did you have a question, comment?
Well, that was in essence my question, just trying to separate the two. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Hastings, anything?
No, I guess I would, if we're going to accept the proposition that and accept Mr. Bolton's interpretation that they should only report under the party committee rules, I don't think that excuses the party from recognizing the need in doing so to make it clear how much money and where they are spending money on ballot questions. I don't think you can have it both ways. They did at one point at least question the need to register as a ballot question committee, which would have clearly required them to disclose expenditures for this ballot question. But once they took the position that, well, we can do it all in our regular party disclosures, I don't think that allows them to then say, well, but we don't have to worry then about disclosing what funds we are spending to this ballot question. And they should have found, and apparently there may have been a way, they should have been asking questions, how do we disclose ballot question expenditures in a way that discloses that to the public? So I can accept Mr. Bolton's opinion. It makes sense to me. But I think even the party should have recognized that does not allow them to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a ballot question without actually disclosing they have done so. So I'm all for having a further memo, a little further investigation done by the staff on this.
And we're going to hear from Mr. Titcomb, who has a different and compelling legal argument that the statute ought to be interpreted differently. Commissioner Marble?
Commissioner Hastings answered my question at the end of his statement. Thank you.
Great.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
Commissioner
Not
Bolton.
Commissioner. I said this in the memo, but I just want to underline that my interpretation of the statute is also contingent on the notion that these, at least going forward, that the disclosures identify the ballot question that's being supported or opposed. Because otherwise, my whole argument is based on the idea that these are substantially similar reporting regimes. And in fact, you don't have to say which ballot question, what you've spent the money on, which ballot question, they're not substantially similar, and the argument kind of falls apart.
Right, and the party committee statute does require reporting, quote, the date, amount, and purpose of each expenditure, sorry.
Yeah, I think they are substantially similar, and I think that information should have been included. I mean, I understand there's maybe a factual dispute about whether it could have been under the technology, but.
And the monetary thresholds are a little different for BQCs.
That is correct.
So
there is a different threshold.
could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the threshold for reporting contributions to a party committee, they're allowed to aggregate and report as a lump sum any contributions of less than $200, maybe it's $200 or less. And for BQCs, the threshold is $50. Anything over any contribution they receive over $50. So that is one difference. I don't view that as a major difference between the schemes, and I think if you look through our
party statutes generally, party committees are often subject to slightly different thresholds in other areas. Like I think there might be a different one for independent expenditures in terms of when parties, and I have to double check that, but it's not unusual to see slight differences like that between party committees and PACs and PQCs.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners?
No.
Okay, Mr. Titcomb, would you like to come testify? Thank you for your memo. It was a well done and compelling memo. You know, some really interesting issues. So I'd like to talk it over. And we read the memo, so you don't need to go over that again. But
yeah, I appreciate your time. I'm not as prepared as I would like to be for today, because I spent my weekend drafting that memo. I'm not an attorney, so there might be some flaws, and thanks to AI is getting helpful too, so. Sorry. Wanted to start off, but here it is. So yeah, thank you, Chair and other commissioners and staff. I wanted to start off today with a quote. So this is the quote. "This is a very important issue, and I think Mr. Titcomb raising it is certainly very appropriate, but it is a big issue that involves more than specific facts of this case." And that was Ms. LeClaire at last meeting. And I totally agree with that statement, that this is an important issue. This is, and this dialogue, and hopefully continued dialogue, is appropriate to figure out the solution for this case. And kind of just the context, since I'm a little off the cuff today, but as you guys, I'm sure, are aware, that I am, my position is primarily against many of these regulations and these laws. We have a case against this commission in regards to disclosure and their chilling effect on First Amendment speech. So that's, just wanted to say that for the context, that I'm against a lot of these regulations for reporting requirements, extra reports and things on principle myself. Additionally, this is not, the written information that you guys have before is trying to, the opposite side's trying to pin this on, the campaigns, yes on one versus no on one. And I said that last meeting, it's not about that. It's not about political points, because if it was, we would have done, press releases in the month of October saying the party is committing ethics violations. It's not about that. And it's really not about Democrat Party or opposite political ideologies in this case. I'm arguing on principle, and the law, there is contradiction, and I agree, the potential contradiction in the law. And then I advocate, even though I'm against these specific reporting requirements and regulations that are chilling effect on the First Amendment, and I am more interested in upholding the law and having it applied equally between parties, and same with a judge. Government policy shouldn't be picking winners and losers, and judges shouldn't be picking based on institutional knowledge, expertise, dollar amounts, because I'm gravely under resourced compared to the Democrat Party in this case. So I hope that those biases aren't influencing your opinions, that we're looking at this at, my ask is that we're looking at this at principle and things like that. So additionally, I'm not going to repeat, reading the memo that I respond to Mr. Bolton, but I hope you guys have read it and will read it. I will just say, for public record, for people watching, that obviously I disagree with his conclusion. That can be found in the summary, the kind of the intro paragraph, and as well as at the end. And based on forgot my pencil and my notes here, but what was already discussed, he just recently mentioned that he doesn't view a major difference between $200 threshold for party committees and $50 threshold for everyone else. And he is right that there is not much legislative history in regards to this specific question regarding party committee filings and ballot question committee filings. But I would like to, propose, looking at the recent legal history in more holistically, and you'll find that the legislature is actually proposed, and it continues to propose, new regulations that are decreasing the reporting thresholds of campaign influence. One of the laws that we're actively challenging is making it so that all contributions to a political, separate issue, but it's the context of it matters, the principle matters, that the legislative intent is to reduce the threshold that the public should be aware of these contributions to organizations that take into account, campaign influencing activities. So that he brushes that off as not a big difference. That is a big difference in my view, and the recent legislation that has shown that the legislature is actively trying to reduce the dollar threshold on required reports. I'm not an attorney, but I had a kind of just a rhetorical question. To ask in his remarks, and maybe I could have asked him in private, but on page 5 of his thing, it says the goal of statutory interpretation is to give effect to the legislator's intent. I'm not positive. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think that's accurate. And I think I kind of try to address that in my response to that, in regards to that. So I just wanted to offer that to you guys.
Well, I can tell you that from my legal background, one of the purposes of statutory interpretation is to express the legislature's intent. There are different kind of steps that you work through in statutory interpretation. I'm not going to go through them all, but you start with reading the plain language, and then you see if that solves the problem, and then you go through other steps to see how you get to a reasonable interpretation of the statute. And one of the steps is to try to, if you can, from the legislative history and whatnot, figure out what the legislature meant to do.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Another couple just response to what was said. And I wanted to propose this, that there was talk about, well, if a party committee hits a $5,001 amount for influence, then they are required to follow, register a BQC. That doesn't have to be, if the party knew they were going to raise and spend money in regards to a ballot measure, then they could have started a ballot question committee on the onset. Yes on One campaign, many of the other ballot question committees on this ballot question and other ballot questions, they register as a BQC with $0 raised. And a lot of the initial public, reports are zero balance or maybe $100. Like for us, it was $100 balance to start our bank account, not wait till $5,000 or $5,001 threshold. So I wanted to do that. And then, Executive Director Wayne started his remarks today about that the complaint was just about the BQC. And I just I never knew that we were going to be doing all this legal, kind of legal experiment exercise in regards to the law. My complaint is really about, and you guys authorized an investigation into this. Were there funds raised and expended in regards to influencing a ballot measure? And was the public shown that? And so I just don't want to. The attorneys are good in cases to churn off the main argument and the main point of the whole thing and onto technical things. And while the legal question is critical and important, I just don't want the commissioners to forget the original complaint in regards to how much was raised, how much was spent in regards to the ballot question, the ballot measure.
And I don't think we've lost sight of that at all. I think that's as we discussed before, the first you know, we have to decide what the statute requires before we can decide whether the party met those requirements or not. But I think we're staying focused on those requirements and whether they were met or not.
And almost briefly you're done, but this attachment should have been included with my thing. And I was just gonna speak to it.
It was.
I don't know if they can see it or not, but basically these are screenshots off the Maine campaign finance law. The homepage, which the Ethics Commission decided to put question 1 on the homepage. Because that had, I would assume because it had more spending than question 2. And then when you go to the settings, very easy settings to figure out the ballot question, you choose the ballot question that you want to see. And it brings up all the organizations that are raising and spending money to influence that ballot measure. And I just wanted to have a visual impact for you guys that the Maine Democratic Party is not on these. So the harm is caused to the public. This is what the press looks, these two things is what the press looks at. When they report on to the public of who's spending, who's raising money, where's this money coming from, and what is expenditure. And I know this because the press, and just some more context on that I take this really seriously, is they were not reporting what Yes On campaign was raising and funding initially. And they brought this up, and I found out that, Yes On One campaign was not listed as a ballot question committee, even though I did everything right. And then what happened was the Ethics Commission had to recreate the PAC registration, the BQC registration, and they redid all the contributions, all the expenditures, so that our name would be on the homepage of the website and on this thing, so that the press could accurately report to the public. So that's what that handout is about. That is the harm that is caused. It's after the fact. That doesn't matter, because the other thing I wanted to stress was that this is also about future, and the fines are, my assumption is to compel compliance for other actors in the future, if there are fines in this case. And the facts, back to the original photo I started off with, the specific, it is more than the facts, but the facts matter. And I don't think I highly and I'm wrapping up, but I highly respect Executive Director Wayne, but I believe he did not execute the commissioner's motion and vote to conduct an investigation into the activities that I first complained about. And in the paper record that the commissioners have, we're seeing different answers from Maine Democratic Party, and those should be not ignored. And to me, different answers would mean we need further investigation into what's going on. Why are they saying that they had 3 contributions? Now they're saying they had 7 contributions. Originally they said they spent $250,000 against the measure. Now they're saying they spent $170,000 dollars. A lower amount. That might not be the correct amount, but they're reporting $176,000 now. Why are they? And this is all public. And I'm not saying I'm not questioning their intent of hiding it. That's not where I'm at with this. But why are the answers different over the last few months? Why have not they, once the issue was brought up in November, why didn't they go in and change the reports and do the appropriate reports? And that was well before the Ethics Commission changed the software. And then lastly, I just kind of wanted to close with a question, is sort of separate to this, but why is it that, or what is the function of this commission? Why is it that a private citizen, myself in this case, but in every ethics complaint, has to be the one that provokes a conversation by filing a complaint? Like I'm made out to be the bad guy for filing a complaint here, but I'm just seeing that the law was not upheld.
Nobody's making you out to be the bad guy.
I'm not saying here, but just in general, like, oh, you're filing a complaint against, opponent, for example, a lot of times, that people think as, oh, R versus D or candidate versus candidate, whatever it is. I'm the bad guy for hopefully the Democrat Party doesn't view that against me, but why is it that we have to provoke conversation with a complaint? Why isn't the staff or the commission, I don't know if that's their role, but upholding the law and taking action against someone? And I do that in an example, like there's other violations that have occurred in regards to in question 1. For example, and I brought this up to the staff, it's not being talked about because I didn't file an official complaint. And I don't think, like, why is that they have to file an official complaint for something to look into? But the Plattner campaign spent over $65,000, well over $65,000 to influence No on One. Why isn't that being upheld? He didn't file a BQC. They're like, and I don't want to shift it to that specific thing, but using that example of why does a citizen have to provoke a conversation to uphold the law in a form of a complaint?
It's kind of the process that the commission uses is, we have a fantastic staff and they try to be on top of everything. When they notice something, they'll bring it to the commission's attention. But if they haven't noticed something, we rely on complaints to bring things to our attention. And I think you're playing a valuable role here in bringing this to our attention. And you brought up a really interesting legal kind of conundrum, something that I think the legislature didn't think about when they made the laws. And I mean, it's dropped on the lap to deal with it. So I think you've served a great purpose here by doing that. And if you have, if you have issues with other potential violations of the law, you should feel free to bring them to our attention. We can't be.
Yeah, but and I understand, I appreciate that. And I understand that you guys can't be everything, but even this is costing a lot for me.
Yeah, sure.
Not money, but time.
Yeah.
Time's more valuable than money. And then you get the negative blowback complaints and things like that of, if I was to report or seek an investigation of every potential violation, that would be a full-time job. And even on my party, Republican Party has committed violations that no one's have called them out on. Not the party, but like Republican candidate campaigns have done violations. But anyways, kind of in summary, once again, hopefully my points, I know they weren't as organized as last time, but you picked up the flavor of what I'm trying to get in the context of that. It's not a us versus them thing. This is about a principle of the matter for me, that the law should be upheld equally across different parties. I don't buy that it was one of the other remarks was that the attorneys for the Democrat Party are trying to shift blame onto their vendors or lack of knowledge. I want to bring up, and I said this last meeting, was that they're multi-million-dollar organization. They have paid attorneys, paid staff, paid treasurer, a compliance firm, I imagine, that have the knowledge to uphold the law, and they should have been well aware of the requirements, whether the ballot question committee regulations or the party regulations. They didn't uphold either one. And please don't buy their argument that it was that is someone else's to blame. If I make a mistake, I own up to it. And I told I had a conversation with the executive director the other day, end of December or something like that. We were end of year reporting and stuff, and I realized one of my PAC reports was off 10 cents. I amended the report when I identified transaction fee, antidote fee was off by 10 cents in like February or something like that, and I amended that report. That's how accurate that. Even though I hate these rules on principle, I followed the law, and so. That said, I appreciate your time today. I hope that this is not swept under the rug. And just to get over it, there was some comments in the stuff before you, like, oh, let's just get on with it. I think this needs more time to be investigated, and not to just accept the opinion of the Assistant Attorney General, you know, if you read my memo, there's still a strong case that they're still required to do a BQC as well. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have questions for Mr. Titcomb? Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate your presentation and you bringing this to our attention. Is there anybody else who'd like, would Ms. Knox or Ms. Brzezinski? Would you like to?
Thank you, Chair Schneider. Kate Knox, attorney at Burns and Schur on behalf of the party. Is probably not helpful for me to go point by point to you. I would just say that the Democratic Party disagrees with the characterization Mr. Titcomb has about what we did and why we did it. I think we've been clear about that. It's probably not helpful for me to sort of just go point by point with you. We obviously support AG Bolton's conclusion. That was our conclusion. That was the legal analysis we provided you. His was much more comprehensive, but that was the legal analysis we put forward from the commission about why we didn't feel like we needed to register as a BQC. So sort of if bifurcating those two issues, we're in agreement with that. We think it makes sense. Contrary to sort of some of the implications that are being made, we don't have any problem disclosing that information. So if you say, here's what we want you to do, here's the information that needs to go here, that's fine. There was no attempt to, while the reports clearly could have had more information, there's been no allegations that any of our activities or our canvases or our materials did not disclose Maine Democratic Party. They did. So any interface with the public, the disclaimers were there. It was not hidden activity. As to the reports themselves, we have some arguments that I think are important about why the reports were filed the way they were filed. I am happy to respond, sort of bifurcate that and respond to those arguments, sort of as Mr. Wayne would like to do that.
I think that makes sense.
I'm not sure it makes sense for me to go through that here, but we are certainly supportive of the AG's sort of conclusion. And I will say is in terms of the investigation, we have tried to be very forthcoming with the staff and provided answers to everything they asked us. Not all of that information is sort of presented to the public because it doesn't have to be. But just to be clear with you that we have been very transparent. I think you can ask Director Wayne about what money was spent, how it was spent, who it was spent. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer questions, but at least on this first piece, we're obviously supportive of that conclusion. I would like to move on to the second piece.
Does anybody have questions or comments for Ms. Owens?
No.
No.
I mean, I
No.
would like to say, anybody? Before you go.
Sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. No, it's my throat.
Oh, I'm sorry. You'll agree that the party committee, in your interpretation of it, still required reporting the purpose of the expenditures, right?
Yes, I think under that, is it 1017?
1017.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think we can talk about why that didn't happen. That doesn't mean that the statute doesn't say what it says.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that.
And I think, the bottom line of this for me is that the public was not informed adequately about what money was spent to influence question one. We'd agree with.
What I would say, and I'm happy to get into this in more detail in response, is that the mechanism, and this is, well, I guess I can criticize the old system since it doesn't live anymore. It's dead. I think it's hard to underestimate to you or sort of overemphasize how much we rely on the system to tell us what reports we need to do. So if you need to go in and tell, and I would ask, I don't even know the proper process, but I guess you would need to call the staff, is that right? And say, we're participating in the ballot question. They turn something on the system and then your reports appear. I think you have to at least give some empathy to, if that is not in your brain, you're thinking, won't need to form a ballot question committee. And you're looking at your reports and it just says October quarterly, January quarterly. That's why that happens. I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying there's no ill intent. It's
Right,
this.
And I wasn't suggesting any
Yeah.
ill intent. I'm just suggesting that the result was the public didn't know. And
Well, the public did know as it related to the activities. If they went to the reports, I think that's accurate. But there's a whole series of ways that people understand activity. But yes, when it comes to the reports, if you looked, it would be hard to ascertain what was what.
Yeah.
I hope that under the new system, well, I don't know.
I hope so too. And I hope
too.
whatever the legislature,
Staff time
whatever the legislature comes up with, I
clicking
hope.
buttons or
Yeah.
doing whatever. And I'm apologize. I said I would leave that for later and then I started talking
I don't know,
about it.
that's great. That's great. Does anybody have questions for Ms. Knox?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate the
Appreciate
time.
it. Is there anybody else here who would like to address this question? Okay. So I think this is what we're left with. I think we're left with two questions for us to handle, and the first is the legal interpretation of the statutes. And the second is the investigation that's ongoing and whether it should continue to be ongoing based upon our interpretation of statutes. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
And so I'll start the discussion off by moving that we adopt Mr. Bolton's interpretation of the statute. And I think I'll talk a little bit about that, but that's my motion.
I'll second that.
My reason for that, and it's a really close question. I think Mr. Titcomb has brought up some really interesting points, and statutory interpretation under the best of circumstances is difficult. But I think we need to keep our focus on the outcome of the statutory scheme. And the outcome is to keep the public informed. I don't think that setting up or interpreting the statute to require a duplicative system with a party committee also having to register as a ballot question committee gives the public any more information if the information was reported correctly and fully by the party committee. So I think to that extent, I think Mr. Bolton's interpretation of the statute is correct. I mean, I think it's clear, everybody agrees that the definition of person in the statute clearly includes party committees. And so we're required to take that next step and see if the outcome of interpreting it, including party committees as persons, produces a ridiculous or a result that's otherwise, what was the term in the statute? Otherwise,
Absurd.
Well, absurd, but unless the context otherwise indicates.
Right,
Is what the statute
right.
says,
The
yeah.
statute says unless the context otherwise indicates, and I think it's a difficult argument to say that the context indicates that party committees ought to also be filing a separate report to duplicate reports that they're already required to file. If they're reports that they're already required to file are filed properly, completely. So that's kind of how I get to that. Would anybody else like to weigh in?
Yes, I'm in agreement that we should be accepting Mr. Bolton's conclusion. I just want to be clear what it is, and that is that parties are not expected to register as ballot question committees. And that we
That's
move
correct.
on from there. Okay.
Is there other discussion?
No, I agree with that conclusion as well.
We're gonna then, after this motion, we're gonna move on to
I believe my next motion probably will be to continue the investigation for Mr. Wayne to have an opportunity to evaluate whether under that interpretation of the law, the party's reporting was adequate.
I'm sorry, I think I interrupted Commissioner Hastings. I apologize.
Oh, I don't think you did.
No, you didn't.
No, okay.
No,
It's
no
difficult for me
apology
to tell.
necessary.
He didn't look offended at any rate.
He looks offended.
I did.
No, I'm just kidding you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, the motion on the floor, it's been seconded, is to adopt Mr. Bolton's interpretation of the statutory scheme. Commissioner Hastings,
Yes.
Commissioner Marvel,
Yes.
Commissioner Leclerc,
Yes.
and I'll also vote yes. And thank you, Mr. Bolton, for your good work. Thank you, Mr. Titcomb, for your legal argument. My next motion is that we continue to investigate the case to give Mr. Wayne an opportunity to see if under the statutory scheme that we've just interpreted, the parties' filings were adequate or not. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
You just briefly, so we're the motion is to have Mr. Wayne investigate and issue a report to us as to whether the party acting as a party, not as a ballot question committee, had inadequacies in its reporting. I would also ask, as part of that investigation, that he address what systemic or systematic barriers there were to that reporting, because I think that's important information for us to have as well.
I think that makes sense, and I think he would do that regardless. Because he's very thorough and interested in the context.
Thank you.
Is there further questioning, discussion? Are we ready for a vote? Okay, Commissioner Hastings,
Yes.
Commissioner Marble,
Yes.
Commissioner Leclerc,
Yes.
and I'll also vote yes. So you have your marching orders, and thank you very much for coming. We appreciate all of your input from everybody.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 3. This is a request for investigation from of Senator Libby's campaign for governor. And Senator Libby, we're gonna I'll get Mr. Wayne to give us kind of a little background, and then we'll give everybody a chance to talk.
Great, thank you. So the Ethics Commission received a complaint concerning Senator Libby's campaign for governor. He's running in the primary election for the Republican nomination, and he's seeking to qualify for Maine Election Act funding, which means he has to collect 3,200 qualifying contributions by April 1st and document that all these contributions are from registered voters. And he has another 5 weeks to do that, to qualify. During this qualifying period, he's allowed to finance his campaign through seed money contributions, which are contributions from individuals up to $250. So if the campaign pays for any services, during this qualifying period, the only way the campaign, the vendors or the payees are supposed to receive payment is if the campaign uses seed money to pay those vendors, or payees. What happened was Senator Libby hired a consultant to manage certain projects for him during this qualifying period. And there was a telephone conversation between this consultant and another individual that was recorded. We provided the commission with the 16-minute audio of that conversation. And in the conversation, the consultant was talking to somebody that he already engages to collect petition signatures on petitions. And the consultant was trying to recruit this individual to start doing additional work collecting qualifying contributions for Senator Libby's campaign. And in the course of this recorded conversation, the consultant said to this person he was trying to recruit, you know, this is in effect, this is not an exact quote, but we could contemplate paying you under the table through me. And he proposed sort of a rate of pay that would be for collecting petition signatures that would be enhanced if this individual also started collecting qualifying contributions for Senator Libby. And this individual was never hired to do this. This was sort of a prospective recruitment type conversation, but the person didn't collect qualifying contribution and he wasn't paid to do that work. So that's the compliance concern is that if any of the if the consultant paid individuals who were collecting qualifying contributions through himself or through some source of funds other than the campaign seed money contributions, that would be a violation of program requirements. So Senator Libby asked to speak to the commission staff after the complaint was filed. It turned into sort of a preliminary investigative interview. We spent a whole hour. He was very forthcoming. He was very concerned about the comments made by this consultant. And he said, I have begun to do my own investigation. I plan to talk to every single one of the people who are collecting PCs for me. This is in effect, I'm not quoting verbatim. And I'd like them to confirm that they were acting as volunteers. So about a week later, we received 7 written statements from him, signed by these people. It was sort of a written survey, apparently, that Senator Libby sent around, in which they say, yes, I was working as a volunteer. And I wasn't coerced into volunteering by being promised additional pay. So he's here today to respond to the complaint and talk to you about what he's done so far and make any other comments you'd like.
Are there any questions from commissioners for Mr. Wayne? Yes, Commissioner Hastings.
And thank you. Mr. Wayne, Jonathan, well, in the first place, would there had to have been some money actually paid, this under the table money, to create an actual violation?
Yes.
And secondly, if that money was ultimately paid from the seed money collected and disclosed, would that, whatever the characterization was of the money, would that be a violation?
No, no.
So the violation that we're concerned about is the potential of an actual amount of money being paid, whatever, to these signature collectors from a source other than seed money.
Right. That's the concern.
Okay, I just want to understand that. It's not what he said, it's what they did in the end.
That, right. What was said didn't happen. So it's what really happened that would matter.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Marble.
I'm just curious, do we know how that conversation happened to have been recorded?
I think Senator Libby would probably be the best. I don't know. He'd be a better source than I would anyway.
Okay.
And they're, yeah. That's in the short term, that's what I would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator Libby, or is there somebody here from the complainant? Okay. Senator Libby or the representative of the complainant can probably let us know.
Okay.
Question.
Commissioner Flynn.
This may be for Mr. Bolton. Does the attempt to solicit that sort of activity implicate any other law?
I mean, violating the, I think willfully or knowingly violating Clean Elections Act is a crime. So because it's a crime, there is criminal attempt to violate those provisions willfully or knowingly could be a crime. There's specific, I'm not a criminal lawyer, so I don't want to get outside of my lane. There are specific requirements for something to rise to the level of being criminal attempt. And, you know, I think, you know, somebody, if it got to that point, a prosecutor could get that. But I don't think, we're probably not there yet in terms of those kinds of considerations.
Are there other questions for Mr. Wayne or Mr. Bolton? Okay, great. Whoever's here from the complainant, if you'd like to address us, you're welcome to.
Certainly.
And please introduce yourself.
My name is John Andrews. I'm with the Jones Campaign. I'm mostly here to listen and observe, but I can clear up how the recording came to be. The signature collector had been burned by the contractor before for previous work. So he was recording the conversation to protect himself with kind of a verbal contract. Wasn't expecting to have what was said happen. And he felt compelled to bring it to us, to bring it to you. That's basically what happened. And we don't want to over politicize the matter today, which is why I'm just going to sit back and observe. We've done our job of notifying you, and we are happy to watch the commission deliberate.
Okay, terrific. Does anybody have any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Senator Libby,
Thank you.
if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I am James Libby, and I am a six different term legislator, 4 in the Senate, 2 in the House, over 33 years in and out. Enjoyed public service. I'm also professionally full-time employed as a college professor and have done a number of other jobs as well. I'm pleased to be here and am willing to answer any questions from the commission. It's for anybody in my position, a difficult thing to actually do, but I will do my best. So I agree 100% with the accuracy of the presentation I just heard from Mr. Wayne, and did show concerns and really had no idea that a person that was kind of representing my campaign would say something like that. So it was disappointing. And so the first thing that I thought about doing is coming in and making a presentation. So I did. And I've come in many times to this office and really tried to be forthcoming and transparent in my effort to run as a clean elections candidate, which this is an aside, but it is a difficult job to run as a clean elections candidate. But I'm happily doing so. And so my first thought after leaving that meeting was that I really should talk to the people that were out collecting signatures for me and try to determine if there was anything that was improper. And I gave the assurances to Mr. Wayne and others that if that was the case, I would withdraw from the Clean Elections program. So I put out something on paper that asked for a signature from the people who were out collecting campaign contributions, and those all came back as in additionally to talk to each of these people too, all came back as, hey, we haven't done anything improper here, and we think we know the law as you've explained it to us. And so we're perfectly willing to sign this document. And so basically, it's a 2-question document that asks if they were coerced in any way, and the answer was that they weren't. There are a couple questions on there, and I'm happy to have the commission discuss that if that's what they need to do. We apologize for the time that is being spent here and for the need for another campaign to raise the issue. Apologize for that as well. I think it's important to take ownership over comments like that. And so the person that made those comments takes ownership and understands the gravity of the circumstance. I think when you have young people that are involved in a campaign, they're often, it can be intoxicating. It's like a lot of people want to be involved in these kinds of campaigns, state level campaigns, like a campaign for governor or US senator or US Congress. And I think that the person got maybe exaggerated, got way out over their skis, really said something inappropriate, and that has been explained to the person's taken ownership for it, and assured me that no money was improperly exchanged in any way in regard to my campaign. So I am definitely willing to go as far as it needs to go with this commission, and I trust the commission with their decision making. Have been certainly around this commission for decades now, and I know that whatever happens today will be a good decision. And that is my statement.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from commissioners?
I guess I'll just ask a brief question. Thank you for your statement. I'm assuming you wouldn't have any objection to the commission staff reaching out to the volunteers to speak directly so that this can be fully addressed.
I welcome it. I've worked with this staff in the past, and especially recently into the Clean Elections Act, and I have all confidence.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments? Yeah, Commissioner Marble.
Just a comment to let Mr. Libby know that his sense of responsibility is appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
Truly.
Thank you.
Other comments or discussion? Okay, thank you, Senator Libby.
You're welcome.
So the question before us is whether this meets the threshold for conducting an additional investigation. Does somebody have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Please do.
But just make a motion that the commission authorize staff to investigate the allegations and file a report with us, report back to us as to its findings.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize an investigation. Is there discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Hastings.
I guess I'm not sure if that is even necessary in my mind. There's no suggestion that money ever changed hands at this point from this third party to anybody. Those people involved have basically told you that they have not been compensated from anybody. They're volunteers. I don't know what, and I understand, Commissioner Leclerc, your question. The investigation seems to me is simply to ask them if they told the truth on that letter. Where beyond that do we need to go? I mean, it's just a follow-up. Say you sent us a document saying that you were a volunteer, unpaid. Is that true? I mean, is that what we're doing to people? We want to double check to make sure you weren't lying. I don't see that this has risen to the level of needing an investigation. Any further investigation.
And I tend to agree. I think, we know conclusively that, the, person who apparently recorded the phone call, never took the position, never took any money from the campaign. And I don't think we have sufficient evidence really to suggest that anybody did. I think there has to be a level of evidence to support an investigation, and I don't think this case meets that. Commissioner Marble.
Well, just to confess to having some mixed feelings on this. On one hand, I easily agree with Commissioner Hastings' opinions and comments and your agreement with them. On the other hand, and this is as much for the benefit of the current campaign as it might be in the future, I think asking or making a motion to have staff conduct whatever narrow or finite investigation this might call for might at least fully resolve this. I don't think anyone wants a sense out there that an accusation of impropriety was made that seems to be backed up by auditory evidence, and yet the commission said, no, we're going to move on. Now, I know everything is open to interpretation. I wouldn't interpret it that way, but that's my only concern, really. It's not about the candidate's performance or anything else. It's about process. And with that in regard, I'm tempted to support the motion.
If
Is
I
there further?
could just
Yeah.
just briefly. I mean, it's an unusual situation. I have to think of how I would feel if I was sitting in that chair. I think I would want an independent investigation to lay to rest any questions that there might be. And I think it's the independence of the staff that I'm looking for here. And it's a serious, situation. I've inquired of Mr. Libby or Senator Libby if he thought it was appropriate with staff, and I believe he said he welcomed it. So, I mean, it's about supplying the public with an independent view of this, not self-investigation, but an independent investigation to lay to rest, which I assume would lay to rest any concern about this incident. That's
And I
the
don't-
point of my motion.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you on that point. I think, if we and the staff had all the resources in the world, and if we felt free to kind of conduct investigations without really sufficient evidence to support it, I think we would do that just to produce a good independent look at the situation. But I think it's pretty clear to me that there's really no evidence of any actual violation. And I think that's required for us to conduct an investigation. Commissioner Hastings.
Yes, the only way I could support this motion would be, and for the reasons that Commissioner Leclerc just said, if Senator Libby would ask that we proceed so that he will have the independent evidence he needs to show that no violation occurred. And I would ask Senator Libby if he would agree to that.
And I will do that on your behalf. Senator Libby. The question's been posed whether you would ask for an investigation from the staff.
Or at least agree to it.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair question. I think, if, in weighing all of those circumstances, I hadn't really thought of this before I came in, but, I would want to, show the people that have volunteered for me that I believe that if they sign something, then they mean it. And I don't want to be disrespectful to them, so that's kind of why I would say, I'll go with whatever you all decide, but I probably won't reach out and say, I want the investigation because I'd rather side with these people.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Actually, are there any other questions for Senator Libby before he leaves the desk?
No.
No,
Sorry to get you open.
I'll come back.
Okay,
May I ask one more?
you certainly may.
In his recommendation, Director Wayne suggests that we do authorize a investigation. And after listening to today's statements, have you changed that recommendation?
That's a question for Mr. Wayne.
Yes.
I mean, I think that I really want to do an investigation if there's an actual majority of the commissioners that want it.
Well,
And if it's 2-2, you know, and then I'd rather not embark on it because I think that I agree with the chair's comments that you need a certain, predicate before the state starts an investigation. And if if you think there's really not a sufficient basis just based on a stray comment from a consultant, then perhaps the proper thing is not to investigate and and the staff does have an opportunity to do further investigation on its own if Senator Libby should turn in 3,200 qualifying contributions. We're authorized by statute without any blessing from you to do whatever investigation we need to verify that he's complied with the seed money requirements. So we could take it as it goes, see what he turns into us, and weigh the evidence at that point and see whether, in our opinion, further investigation is necessary. If I'm just offering as another alternative.
yeah, no, that's a very good point. Thank you. Is there further discussion, questions? Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we authorize the staff to conduct. I don't really, unless you have something earth shaking to add.
I'd just like to make a statement on the record if that's allowable.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, everybody. I highly respect Jim Libby and like him, but I want to go on record as saying you are setting a precedent where self-investigation with no sworn statements under penalty of law are superseding the ability for the commission to investigate. I strongly disagree with that. I think you should investigate. Hopefully you clear Jim's name. But I think it's incumbent upon the commission to do their due diligence and have an investigation.
Well, I'll say that I think you've misinterpreted the comments that have been made. The comments that have been made haven't focused on Senator Libby's investigation really at all. They focused on whether or not there's a level of evidence sufficient to authorize an investigation. So I would differ with your characterization to that extent.
Okay, I guess I'm stopping by the district attorney's office.
Thank you. So is there further discussion?
Given Mr. Wayne's highlighting that if the QCs are turned in, that the commission, the staff retains the ability to look into this further on their own, I think I would be prepared to withdraw my motion.
Okay. And you are withdrawing your motion?
Yes.
Do you have one that you'd like to substitute?
No.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we take no further action on this complaint. Is there a second?
Second,
Is there discussion? Okay, we'll call for a vote. Commissioner Hastings,
yes.
Commissioner Marble,
Yes.
Commissioner Leclerc,
Yes,
and I'll also vote yes. So thank you very much, both of you, for coming and addressing the issues for us. Thank you. Is there anything further, Mr. Wayne? Does anybody have a motion that's very likely to pass?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
second? That's not debatable, so we'll go directly to a vote. Commissioner Hastings,
Yes.
Commissioner Marble,
Yes.
Commissioner Leclerc,
yes.
and I'll also vote yes. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate your attendance and your deep thought and contributions to the issues that we've been dealing with. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All very much.
Oh.